Here to shed some light on the funding of terrorism, the CEO of Tactical Rabbit, Everett Stern. You may recall Mr. Stern, the whistleblower in the HSBC money laundering scandal. He uncovered billions of dollars of illegal money laundering transactions, which led to an SEC investigation and subsequently a fine of almost $2 billion. Everett, we thank you very much for your time. Thanks so much for Skyping in now to America's Forum.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
So, Everett, can you describe how terrorist groups like ISIS are being financed?
Yeah, sure. So what's happening is really through a money laundering mechanism. Funds are being wired to fronts, and then those fronts are then opening up bank accounts at banks like HSBC, and then the money's being wired and they're being financed. But really, where the source of the funds is coming from governments. I think in the ISIS situation, it's really coming from Russia and also Iran. But what's not being understood is that in order to stop terrorism, is that you have to stop them at the bank. You have to cut off their money supply.
Now, Everett, is there any gray area here for some of these folks? And I've covered a few of these stories where, say, a doctor here in this country thinks he's supporting medical supplies for an Islamic country, but winds up donating that money, then gets used for a terror organization. Is there any gray area, or should folks here in this country or others that donate to some of these organizations, should they know how their money is being used?
Yeah, they should absolutely know how their money is being used. And, if it's going to an OFAC sanctioned country, it's illegal, it's treason. And what people seem, where the disconnect seems to be, is that money laundering, terrorist financing, it kills people. Innocent people will die as a result of it. And that's what, it's not just a white collared crime. I mean, banks that are financing terrorism have the blood of American soldiers on their hands. So I think when an individual is going to put money into an organization, or to buy medical supplies or anything of that matter, that needs to be taken into account. That money could go towards building an IED to blow up one of our soldiers.
Now, Everett, in 2013, HSBC admitted that it had allowed big Mexican and Colombian drug cartels to launder at least $880 million. The bank also admitted to using various schemes to move hundreds of millions of dollars to nations subject to trade sanctions. Are there any other banks that were involved in, and what can we learn from that scandal that helps us now try to uncover what's going on with these terror groups in the Middle East and elsewhere?
Sure. I mean, Standard Chartered Bank, Bank of America has had numerous run-ins with the drug cartels. But, really all the big banks are involved in this in some fashion. And I think what the problem is that the Department of Justice just is not sending people to jail and is not prosecuting anybody. So it's kind of like, giving these banks a get-out-of-jail-free card. Let me give you an example. I mean, if I murder somebody, right, and I go to court, I can't just pay the judge, $500,000 just for a not guilty plea. I mean, and that's what the banks are doing, which is not American, and that's not the way it should happen. And that's how terrorists are getting financed. And unfortunately, our government is allowing it to happen because we're afraid of a financial crisis. But if I can also just add on the terrorist financing, for instance, with Tactical Rabbit, my company, we just did an investigation into SJP, which is the Students for Justice of Palestine, which is a student organization based in the United States. They're spreading rapidly. They're being financed by our tax dollars. And we believe, if through our intelligence operation, that all indications point that they are financing Hamas. Now, so this is a student-run organization, based in our universities, that's sending money to a terrorist organization. And I think with this Gaza situation, what people don't understand is that, look, you have the Palestinians, and then there's a separate group, and that's Hamas. Hamas is separate from the Palestinians, and Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they need to be wiped off the map. And again, I know that's an extreme view, but you know, I think a lot of the news keeps jumbling that Hamas is combined with the Palestinian people, and they're not.
Well, Everett, you mentioned that student-run organization, but since you say there's no gray area here, I wanted to get you to name a couple other organizations that you think are funneling money to these terrorists, but maybe trying to operate here in this country under the flag of being a legitimate aid organization. What are some red flags you've seen of groups that people should avoid?
Yeah, well, part of the Students for Justice in Palestine organization, my intelligence officers found that money was going to Canon Fair Trade on the West Coast, also the Westpac Foundation, and what these organizations are saying is that they're giving money to the Palestinians, and they're helping Gaza, but really where that money is going, it's going to Hamas, but they don't, for some reason, these organizations don't separate the two, and again, it's not understood that Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they're an enemy of the United States and the state of Israel. But most importantly, they're an enemy of the United States, and also having to do with them being financed. It's unfortunate that our government, and again, I'm very pro-government, I'm very pro-America, but unfortunately, our aid that's going to Hamas is being used to build tunnels and to buy rockets, from Hezbollah, and it's a real issue here. I mean, I think the country needs to evaluate, where we're sending our money, and is that going to be financing people that we're going to be fighting much later?
Everett, you basically concentrate on what's going on in the shadows, but you mentioned something here that I like to pick up on, and that is the notion how much spending is done in wide open circumstances. In other words, as a budget item, as appropriated money, how much over the years has the Obama administration sent to the Palestinian Authority or directly to Hamas?
Talking billions of dollars. I mean, and it's not only the aid; it's what they're allowing to fund to flow indirectly, and that's the problem. I mean, we don't. So let me give you an example. If I can just break down how a money laundering situation works, because a lot of people don't know what money laundering is. So if you have let's just say you have a terrorist, right? And he's making all this money from drug dealing or from whatever illicit activities he's doing. So he decides to open up a pizza shop or a car dealership, and what he does is that the car dealership and the pizza shop don't actually make any money. They maybe sell a few pizzas here and there, but what he does is he takes that money that he's making illegally and he puts it into the pizza shop and shows that's the revenue, and then he can go and file taxes. So he's turning illegitimate money into legal money. Now, the problem with this is that it makes it very difficult to identify the source of the funds, and that's how the funds get into the banking system. A drug dealer can't just walk into a bank and say, here's $100,000 for my drug dealing activities. So they have to do it in via a pizza shop, some other mechanism. So what's happening now is that globally we're losing track of our ability to actually monitor this and stop it. And really, the only place where to stop it is at the bank, and that's what for some reason here the Obama administration is allowing the banks to continue to do this.
Everett Stern, we'll have to stop it right there. We appreciate what you have to say. Next time we have you back, we're going to find out all about the name of your firm, Tactical Rabbit, but that's in the future. We thank you for shedding light on this very serious topic of money laundering and terrorists. America's Forum will continue following this time out.